If you are here for the in-store customer experience, you're in the right room. Congratulations. So we have panelists, Mike and Danielle. Mike is from Victra or Verizon, and Danielle is from Barneys. So why don't we have a seat, and we'll get started. I just had a couple of slides here that may work. Oh, there we go. So you are in the right room, which is always a good place to start. So I thought that I'd talk about 2,000 years of retail in about 60 seconds. So first we start with the Greeks. And 2,000 years ago, there was a place called the Agora. And the Agora basically is today's modern mall. And you would go to the Agora back then, and you would buy ivory from Africa, spices from the Far East. And basically, if the fish was in, someone would claim, hey, the fish are here, get some fresh fish. But the destination is always the same, and how we're getting there is the journey is a little bit different. So if we look at shopping, and if we look back to when people were window shopping, even windows have changed. And if we look to records, records have changed quite a bit over the past few years. And then we look at buying, buying has changed. So what you'll see from our panelists is that they basically have really followed the 3 pillars of customer engagement. One is understand the customer needs, and both Danielle and Mike will tell you about the training that their sales associate goes through. Connect what matters most, and you'll see that in Mike's store, Victra, it's very focused, it's almost Scandinavian, and it's designed for a certain way. In Danielle's store, it's very welcoming and very involved and very intricate. And then focus to eliminate what is not needed. We saw from our first speaker, Ken Hughes, the fact that everyone's got a very short attention span, so we need to focus and get right to the point. So, and then the last thing, we need to have all the when, the why, the how of our customers, because that's changing, and it's changing, as our Walmart presenter said, every 6 months. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and tell us about Victra.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. Okay, I'm going to go very quickly because we want to have time for a discussion, but I thought I'd just introduce you a little bit to Victra and who we are. Victra is really an internal brand. Our brand is Verizon. We have 1,200 Verizon stores across 46 states. We're Verizon's largest independently owned retailer. And we've been on this amazing journey. Victra as a brand was actually born on October 9th of last year, 2017. Before that, the company was an amalgamation of lots of different acquisitions. In fact, there were over 22 different acquisitions that have happened over the last couple of years. Tons of change, and of those acquisitions, about 4 of them were really, really huge acquisitions. So we had a lot of different company cultures and a lot of different ways of exploring the business. And so my job as Chief Experience Officer is, number 1, I own marketing, merchandising, and supply chain, and 2, more importantly, I own the guest experience as a direction-setting enabler, but at the end of the day, it's our front line. It's the folks that are in our stores. So one of the things that we've got as we think about our 2020 vision is, if there were going to be a headline that came out, people would be talking about, wow, the experience that you have in this store is really amazing, and what is the secret sauce in this whole idea of service aptitude, and how do you hire, train, and develop people in a way where their aptitude is all about service and making a difference in the lives of the people that they interact with. And in my business, people think about going in and buying a brand new smartphone as the equivalent of getting a root canal. It's not typically a fun experience. It takes a long time. And so we're on this journey, and we're doing a lot of work around how do we change that? What are the things that we need to do differently? And so my son is a filmmaker, and he talked to me a lot about Alfred Hitchcock. Everybody in the room knows who Alfred Hitchcock is? I always have to ask that question now because some people literally don't know. An amazing director who did really iconic and indelible movies. And one of the things that was unique about Alfred Hitchcock is he had 2 scripts for every movie. He had a blue script and he had a green script. And the blue script was all about the physical setting, the lines and the facts, the way things needed to be set up, the lighting. And then the green script was all about the emotional experience and what he was trying to get out of the scene and get people to connect into. And what I would tell you is the way we're thinking about our work and what we're working on today is 20% of our effort is on the blue script and 80% of our effort is on the green script. Does that make sense? That's really the difference that we're trying to make. And so as you think about strategies for disruption, we're looking at things like, should we be a house of brands or a branded house? And how should we be thinking about that in terms of our overall approach into the marketplace? And then what are new ways that we can connect and engage? So not just the physical location, but every single touch point. We heard that earlier today. As you think about omnichannel and the way in which people are looking at technology and devices and how they use those, they want to make sure that they have a pretty seamless experience no matter which way they engage. So that's an area of focus for us. And then under the green script side, it really is 3 steps. The first step is, as I talked about, as a company, we're this amalgamation of lots of different cultures. So we needed to take a step back and say, what do we need to do to create a world-class culture? What does that setup look like? And how do we really get everybody engaged in that? That led into the second piece of work that we're working on, which is fundamentals that are aligned to a lot of research and a lot of data analytics that help us understand the journeys that our guests are on. What are the unique journeys that they have when they're walking into the store? And the way in which we engage based on that journey makes all the difference in the world in terms of the success that we have and the success and the feelings that they have when they leave. And then the last area is making sure that we are focused on building off of those fundamentals and moving into what we call a guest service revolution. Getting our people to think about that differently, that we're not just selling a device, we're actually creating an opportunity to give somebody a remote control for their life. And what does that mean? Connecting technology to life is a big part of what we do. So as you think about some of the pilots that we have in our New York stores here, we're piloting this notion of it's really a branded house versus a house of brands. We're trying to find ways of bringing solutions together versus bringing brands together in a way that connects to the way people use the devices and how they interact in the world of Internet of Things. As you think about other ways that we can engage, we partnered with Google, and we had a pop-up store here in New York City and another one out in LA, and it was just a whole new way of engaging people into the Google universe, and how do we bring that to life, and then how do we make that connection back to the story of the network and what we provide in terms of superiority. And then as we think about the company rebrand, we went on this long journey to really, I don't expect you to write this down or memorize it, but it's really around making sure we very carefully pulled in all the insights from our teams so that when we built the brand, it was a reflection of them and the values in which we wanted to create. And now we're on this journey of really taking over 255 different insights and pulling those into a series of next steps that are going to allow us to move forward in terms of the way we teach, train, and develop our people going forward. And then finally, really thinking about the guest service revolution. How do we take that fundamental platform and move it into a whole new way of engagement? Something that you don't see in the industry today. If you walk into any store, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, all great companies, the experience is pretty much the same. It really is, okay? So that sets up a perfect opportunity to create disruption, and what are we doing about it? And that's the focus that we're spending. And right now we're doing pretty well. We just, this last year, we just won the Best Customer Service Award for Verizon among all their retailers. And we had a big presenter, Shaquille O'Neal, came out on stage and gave us the award, which was really fun. This is a video that we show our new employees.
Today, the most unbelievable technology the world has ever known rests in the palms of millions of hands because we put it there. Like a modern-day Prometheus, we've given fire to the world to light it, unite it, and bring us closer than ever before. We provide the chess pieces, and now's the time to change the way the game is played. The future of mobile won't be just a transaction. It'll be a chain reaction of new possibilities, new passions, new routes, roads, connections, and relationships. Those that come into our stores will leave with a new course to be charted. Imagine how we could wake up the world if only we recognized what we were handing them. Inspiration for their next novel, an anthem to live by, the ability to make long-distance work, access to far but not forgotten friends, endless entertainment, and education between shifts, and the discovery of the undiscovered. At Victra, we are changing the experience by how we market and sell. Newsflash, we are not your typical wireless retailer. Because if you haven't already picked up on it, we don't just sell technology, folks. We equip the world to charge the fields of life. Technology is merely the way we make that happen. At Victra, we connect technology to life. We are united by celebrating our people and our culture. We are empowered to become the yardstick by which all others are measured. We serve as a trusted guide so that our guests can become the hero of their own story. And we have a damn good time doing it.
Great. So we've seen the world of phones and technology, so now we're going to visit the world of fashion and the customer experience.
Hi, everyone. So Barneys, New York. Is everyone familiar with Barneys? Seeing a lot of head nods. That's a good thing. So for those that are not familiar, clicker's not working. The clicker's not working, just FYI. So we are a luxury multi-vendor specialty retailer. We were founded here in New York in 1923. We currently operate 23 stores as well as 2 websites. In addition to being kind of the preeminent luxury retailer, Barneys is really known for our sort of unique point of view and creativity and our curation of merchandise, and really discovering and launching many well-known innovative designers. There's several aspects of the store experience that we're really focusing on currently at Barneys. The first being, again, service, and really making sure that service is unparalleled and it's personalized for every client. That expectation has really always been the expectation with our stores. When we talk about the experience with our associates, we call it the selling ceremony, because it really should be something that's very special every single time our client walks in our doors. But what we've been focusing on in the last few years is really adding additional tools and technology to that for our sales associates to really enhance that experience and help them make it even more seamless and personalize it, which really helps develop relationships with the client, which is very, very important. That associate-client relationship is extremely key for what we do. These are just some examples of the associate-facing app that we built internally that they use for all of their product information across the entire chain, as well as all their client information. We're also very focused on creating unique, one-of-a-kind experiences in our stores. I can't really speak about some of the things that are upcoming. However, some good examples from this past year, we did a pop-up collaboration with Birkenstock called the Birkenstock Barneys Box during New York Fashion Week. We also had something called The Drop, which you may have heard of. It received a lot of press, which was a really unique, first-of-its-kind retail experience for that new next generation luxury consumer. And that is John Boy tattooing people in the middle of the sales floor, which worked out well, but was very stressful at the time. I was a little nervous about that. We also are very much focused on leveraging the other services in our stores. So in addition to purchasing really amazing product, there's a whole host of other things you can do in the store. So for example, we have restaurants in 4 of our flagships, which is a very important business and is growing. We're adding a restaurant, Fred's, to our San Francisco flagship in the fall, and when we open our Miami flagship in a few years, that will also have a Fred's. Beauty services, our salon Uptown is in partnership with Sally Hirschberger. Downtown, with our new flagship that opened 2 years ago, we have a blind barbershop, if anyone's familiar with the Blind Barber brand, which is really cool. So the services we find to be very important for our clients, but we also really do customize them and tailor them to each location. I wanted to include some fun facts that I thought would be relevant for this session. The clients that shop in our store spend 3 times as much as the clients that only shop online. And our client that shops both online and offline has the highest average spend, which I'm sure for many in the room sounds familiar for your brands as well. And they do drive about 1/3 of the revenue, so they're an incredibly significant segment for us. Additionally, what we've found really interesting is that our young customer, 34 and under, more than half of them are already shopping in the store. So we find the store experience to be incredibly important, not just for our existing customer, but also for our new customer and soon-to-be customer as well. That's it.
Okay. Great. So how many people, just raise your hands, have shopped in Barneys in the last, I guess, 2 years? Okay.
That's pretty
Great.
good.
Good. We've got to get the cards from everybody else
Yeah.
before they leave. And then how about Verizon? How many people shop in Verizon? Okay, Barneys wins. All right, we'll get their business cards afterwards too. Good. So a question. So Craig from Walmart talked about things are changing every 6 months, and Ken talked about other changes, but authenticity and so forth. So you've been a brand for a year now. So how have things changed in a year?
Oh, tremendously. I think just through the research and the insights, we've completely revamped the way we think about our hiring profile. So who we hire to come into the store, the way we think about the training process has been completely re-engineered. We've also re-looked at the way we think about scheduling. So scheduling in the store is being really enhanced through data analytics to help us understand what are the right times to be available. It's really interesting when you think about this space that there's 2 different shopping trips that typically happen. One oftentimes is coming in and getting the information, going online, getting the information, really spending time learning. And then the second half is, when do I have the time to actually go through and make that trade? Change out my device, go through the whole process, which is typically a pretty involved process. It takes about 40 to 45 minutes to go through the transaction. It's one of the things that we're working on hard, which is that's a dissatisfier for people to have to sit and wait and go through that process. So a lot of that is what's changed dramatically beyond how we're thinking about the physical environment.
And that's in 1 year.
That's in a year, yeah.
So Danielle, Barneys, you said, has been around for 95 years. So what hasn't changed about Barneys?
Well, I think to my point earlier, we still are very much known for our curation of designers, finding the new next best thing. And the service level, again, has been the expectation for quite some time. And we do hear a lot of feedback from our clients that they are very happy with the service. They're very dedicated to that particular sales associate. They'll say things like, so-and-so on the 5th floor saved my life. And we're not saving lives, to be honest, in this room. And you don't necessarily hear that from customers from all sorts of brands. So that hasn't changed. What has changed is the customer has more access to information than ever before. So they can buy a lot of things online. Even if it's not available online, they can learn about a lot of the merchandise online. They can learn about the designer or the story behind the merchandise online. They can see all the photos from the runway show of the full looks in order right after it happens, or they can watch it live streaming it as it's happening, or they're watching it on the Barneys Instagram from our buyers sitting in the front row. So that means that our sales associates really have to be armed with the best tools and as much information as possible, because that customer coming in, I think, is much more knowledgeable when they're crossing the threshold into the store. I was saying yesterday at a lunch that in the past, if you wanted to see the new Dries Van Noten collection, you had to go to the store on Saturday afternoon and check it out. Whereas now those people maybe have already seen all the photos and kind of already have a certain idea of what they want. So the sales associates really have to be very well trained and educated, which is a huge undertaking in a multi-vendor retailer. You know, we're not a mono brand where we have to teach them about that one brand, and we know exactly here when the different seasonal collections are coming in. They have to know all of the brands, and and those brands are changing quite often. They have to know the different direction with each new collection. These designer houses are constantly rotating their head creative directors and designers, which then brings in kind of a whole new creative direction sometimes. So it's a lot of information, and then on top of that, they actually have to sell the product and get it to the customer.
Great. What really struck me about talking to you both is just the level of knowledge. In your case, I'm coming in with my iPhone or my iPad, and I'm in a panic mode, and you need to have psychological to get me to become calm. In your store, you know, I might be just completely overwhelmed because there's so much choice there. So in your video, you talked about the training, and in our conversation, you talked about training, and then Ken talked about earlier authenticity and the experience. So can you expand a little bit on the training? Because that seems to be what, although your brands are very different, they're the same in that regard.
Yeah, for us, we put a lot of effort into all the basic training modules that all of the sales associates and managers have to go through, both when they start with the company at onboarding and then they're constantly refreshed. A lot of it focuses not just on the selling ceremony, as I said before, but also then building relationships with the clients, because that really is the key. Clients that are clearly tied to a sales associate, which we can easily see through data, spend much, much more than those that are not tied to a sales associate. But then again, with all of the different brands that we carry, the training is just constantly ongoing, and the product knowledge is really important. So pretty much every single morning before the store opens, they have some sort of clinic from a vendor representative that's coming in and going through whatever the new delivery is or the new collection that's coming, et cetera. So it's a lot of information. In the past, a lot of that would be centered upon different departments, whereas now we really focus on inner selling, meaning in the larger stores, yes, you work in women's shoes, but that doesn't mean that you can't also sell a handbag because you've already developed this relationship with the client. So now we need to get that information not just to the shoe associates, but really to the entire store population. And then additionally, some of the tools that we've created also really helps with the product knowledge. But it's a large amount of information.
Very similar in that I think fundamentally where we're shifting the organization is in this business for a very long time, it's been about the product, the device, and having product knowledge. And so in our business, oftentimes we have pretty high turnover on the front line because we've got younger associates that come in between 19 and 23 years of age, tends to be the age range. And so often we would just throw them out on the floor, give them some product knowledge and tell them to go to work. And what we found is that, number one, they were feeling this feeling of inadequacy in terms of being able to actually talk about what they wanted to be able to share. And then importantly, our guests were constantly dissatisfied. They felt like they were being sold things that weren't necessarily what they were looking for. So features and benefits, both of the network and Verizon and the product are important foundations. But what we've really spent a lot of time over the last several months looking at are what are the unique journeys that the guest is on when they come in our door. And for us, there's 5 unique journeys that we discovered that are very specific. And as we hire people in, we've completely revamped our training around understanding and discovering what those journeys are, and then adapting the way in which we sell to the journey, to what they're looking for. And a great case in point is the number one reason people come in our door in terms of frequency is service related. They've got a problem with their device, or they're having a problem with the network, or they're looking to pay a bill. Some people pay in cash. There's a number of different reasons why they walk in the door from a service standpoint. But oftentimes when you start engaging with that guest in that environment, they start to open up and share things that become really helpful in terms of the selling process and what you're trying to achieve. We're finding that our NPS scores in the stores where we've really launched this and our conversion rates have gone up exponentially since we've launched this new process.
And we can, if you have questions during this time, just raise your hand or shout it out. What struck me, so I went to Barneys as part of my preparation. And you walk into Barneys, and if you've been to Barneys, it's pretty much the same experience. So you're beautiful store, beautiful spiral staircase, and then you find, oh, there's Fred's. There's a place to have lunch, and then there's the blind barber downstairs, and then all these areas that get made up. And so it's got a very encompassing, and I feel like I'm discovering things all the time. When we go into Victra, it's a very Scandinavian type wood and white, and so there's a reason for the store design. And I wonder, because this is the customer experience, so we talked about training, but what about the store design? Because my feeling was when I went into your store, I was focused on the salespeople. Mm-hmm. When I went into your store, I was like, oh my goodness, it's so many wonderful things. And then the salespeople came up afterwards. So if you want to explain how you did that.
Yeah, it ties to the journey that we're on, which is most of our guests that are walking in the door have a really good understanding, at least as a starting point, of functionality of the smartphone and what they're looking for. They've done a lot of research, oftentimes online. And so when we come in, what we're trying to do is simplify that process for them to find the device that they're interested in and or look at ways that they can engage the technology across lots of different platforms, whether it's just the smartphone or using that smartphone as your remote control in the home through IoT, all kinds of different ways. The difference maker is what we do in terms of sharing knowledge and understanding the journey and how we engage. And so we want to try to declutter the environment a little bit and give people a chance to go through the process of engagement and listening a little bit more versus being a little bit overwhelmed with what their surroundings are. Mm-hmm. This is new. We're testing this out. Mm-hmm. We're learning a lot in the process. But what we're also finding is our sales consultants are much more engaged with our guests when they come in.
Mm-hmm. How about Barneys?
Well, we have a different store design for every single one of our stores, which was something that was new to me, having previously worked for retailers that have hundreds or thousands of stores. It's very important to us that the physical space really reflects how beautiful the product is, and so we use really beautiful materials, but we really try to let the product sort of speak for itself. And then the other thing that is very unique, I think, compared to some of the other retailers we're most often compared to is that, again, going back to that kind of Barneys edit or curation, we don't have any shop-in-shops. So you won't see different materials as you move along the wall, say if you're on the main floor looking at handbags that are more reflective of each brand. It's all Barneys. So there's a consistency in terms of the materials, the signage, et cetera, and we really try to let the product speak for itself.
Okay. I think we end in about 2 or 3 minutes, correct? Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So for your VIP customers, more so for Barneys, I think, than you, but what type of communication do you have with, how do you keep those VIP customers feeling VIP,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to come back, knowing they're there, staying ahead of them, and all that?
We do have a small number of customers that drive an incredibly large amount of the business, but we have these other up-and-coming segments that are also important because we want to make sure that we're continuing to grow our customer base and that we are speaking to the new customers. When it comes to those top customers, it again really boils down to the associate relationship, and they're really having one-on-one communication with them.
How is that done, though, I guess is my question.
We really coach the sales associates to use whatever method the client prefers. So there's no one answer really. More and more clients just want to be texted, and that's not even an age thing. They're just like, text me a picture, I want to see it. And then they'll just tell them to send it. Many of our store sales are not from customers that are physically present. We do a lot of sends out of the store, so once they've developed that relationship, even if our client is traveling or lives elsewhere, many of our clients own multiple homes, so they shop in many of our stores, they're still in contact with them.
A particular system that tracks the customer's purchase history, like some type of online personal book?
So we have a really great CRM system that is newer in the last couple of years, and all of that data is fed into the associate app that we built ourselves.
We do use the app. There is an app for the associate.
Yep.
Ties into this.
So we built that completely on our own. I was sort of the main point person on the business side in terms of what we wanted to look and feel like, and what functions we wanted in there. And the goal was to make it super straightforward and simple and intuitive. Most of our sales associates or personal shoppers are fashionistas, for lack of a better word, and that's great because they can really sell the product and romance the product because they themselves really love it, and they don't need to be techie. So we just need to give them a tool that works and is super simple and easy. There's a lot more we want to add to that to make it a full-blown clienteling tool, but really the clienteling is key. And we also, we've always defined top customers by spend, and that is the ultimate definition. However, we look at frequency a lot more now because, again, it's all about that relationship, and we sit down, we'll sit down with the store managers on a regular basis, they sit down with the department managers on a regular basis, they sit down with the sales associates on a monthly basis of looking at their top 50 and actually looking at who has not been in, looking at their spend versus last year, why have they not, and the associate should know. The associate should know that, oh, they're actually going through a rough divorce, I haven't heard from them. The associate should know those things. And so really, if they're not seeing the customer 4 times a year, then they don't necessarily have a relationship with them, not to the level that we expect.
And you think that piece, that app and the CRM system that you have is more important or as important as the setup of your store, and that each store is unique, I mean, I feel like that side of it, I'm a long-term Nordstrom employee, so customer service I understand, but I feel like that piece of it is so much bigger than everything else. Connection that you have.
I think the people piece is the most important. It's the connection. We have sales associates that have been sales associates for 30 plus years and have had clients for that long, but we also have new sales associates in their 20s and they're connecting with different clients. I think it's important to have different types of associates so that different types of clients find the right person to connect with. And then the technology now is very important, kind of laying on that foundation.
Have you seen an increase in the ability to connect with customers since you launched this app? It sounds like at all.
Yes, so we've been using it about 2 years, about maybe a year and a half in all the stores. I would say it makes it much easier for the associates to access the information in terms of prior purchase history, sizing, so that just makes it more seamless. They know exactly, because again, it's so much information, as I was saying before. I don't necessarily expect my sales associate to remember like what size I wear in a Manolo shoe versus a Chanel. So it really helps them just make that a lot more seamless.
We are out of time, but someone raised their hand, so.
I just want to know how you address the balance between the sales associate being in their personal device on your app and actually being available to the customer in the store. And I'm a phone shopper, but I love
Yes.
one, but that's my experience when I come into the store. Everybody's in there.
It's quite a challenge. It is a really big challenge because we've enabled them with these devices and the clients want them to be available. And so we're constantly talking to them and training regarding, how you balance that person that's on the phone that could be very demanding and or very important, but also the person that's in front of you and what perception you're giving off by looking down at your phone, and really trying to teach them that, you know, yes, you're working and it's important, but if you can feel someone if they're standing there, and you need to look up and you need to put your phone away. And also it really comes down to the managers in the store making sure that they're managing the floor properly, and there's certain hours of the day where it's very easy to do that work, and then there's other hours where they really probably need to put the phone or iPad away, or they're using the iPad when they're engaging with customers on the floor. But it is a huge challenge that we wrestle with. There's one store in particular that they're not allowed to have their phone on the floor now, which defeats the whole purpose of this because it just became such an issue. So until we can really rein that in, we've had to kind of ban it in certain situations, which I would prefer obviously not to, because we've built these great tools for them. But it's a huge challenge. We're in the process of giving everyone a Barneys phone, and the stores that we've done it in, the sales associates actually like it because they like being able to separate the two, because we have clients that think that they can like text and call associates even in the middle of the night. We have a lot of fashion emergencies, I guess. But there are some that are using their own. So it's a mix now, but so far the associates have actually liked kind of being able to separate.
Great. Thank you very much for your question. Michael and Danielle are here after the panel if you want to talk more. Thank you.
Thank you.